Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And as glass casts its polarizing shadow over the pop culture landscape, Blue Dragon 5 and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to go back and look at the two films that have led to this in one of the most unlikely and unconventional trilogies in cinematic history with M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable slash split slash glass. What are we officially calling this trilogy?
Well, it does actually have an official name, Tiki.
Does it have a name? What is the name? What is the name?
I'm gonna butcher it here because I'm always convinced I'm reading it wrong. But, it's like whatever the train was called, Tiki. It's the E train or the East train 177. That's the trilogy. That's what they call it. Like the E train 177.
Okay, you know what? Let's just call it the E Train Saga, Dragon.
There you go. That sounds so much better. The E Train Saga. Yes.
Okay, so Dragon, just right off the bat, we have to kind of talk about this is like one of the first times that we're really digging deep into M. Night Shyamalan on the channel. I believe ever. And that's the thing, Dragon. M. Night Shyamalan has been like a fascinating figure to me. I mean, I embrace the dude almost as much through his bad movies as through his good movies. And you know what? Most of the time, I'll defend his polarizing movies, Dragon, just to kind of lay the groundwork for my opinions, not just on Unbreakable, but as the man as a whole. Dragon, I'm one of the people where it's like, I fucking love The Village. I think The Village is a really, really, really underrated movie. The only reason why that movie is as infamous as it is because of the way it was marketed. It's not necessarily a horror movie. Having said that, Dragon, The Village to me might still be the biggest twist in any of the Shyamalan movies, and it's just a major head fuck for me. Of course, you gotta love the first three movies: Signs, Unbreakable, Sixth Sense. All three of them are just modern day like thriller masterpieces. I think the term "the new Spielberg" was maybe a little bit hyperbolic, but honestly, Dragon, after those first three, especially Signs, the term "the new Hitchcock" wouldn't have been completely out of place. Like, Signs to me is like the closest thing we're ever going to get to a modern day Hitchcock movie. And then, and then of course his career kind of went off the rails a little bit after that. I am an adamant defender of Lady in the Water. Like, it's not a good movie by any stretch, but it's a fascinating movie, and it's a very, very personal movie to Shyamalan. And it's a mess, but at the very least, it's a mess that's oozing with creativity. And you've got a damn good Paul Giamatti performance in there too, which is always a plus. After that, it gets harder to defend Shyamalan, Dragon. After that, it's like, we have The Happening, which, The Happening, I'll give it, like, The Happening has one or two scenes that are legitimately kind of suspenseful, like the infamous lawnmower scene. And, but for the most part, The Happening kind of veers into, like, so bad it's good territory with Marky Mark and everything. His next couple movies, Dragon, I frankly just never touched. The Last Airbender, After Earth, just never touched them. Maybe one day if I'm really looking to complete my Shyamalan experience, I'll go back to them out of spite. But you know what, Dragon? It's just, to me, that's just two movies that are real black marks on his career. Like I said, like, The Village was where it started to go wrong for most people, but I respect The Village almost as much as I respect his first three movies. And Lady in the Water, at the very least, was ambitious. So really, it was just kind of the 1-2 punch of The Last Airbender and After Earth that kind of sank his reputation for a while. Then we got The Visit, which I've been hearing mixed things about The Visit now in retrospect. But I got to admit, I really like The Visit. I think it's a very clever little found footage movie, and it's kind of Shyamalan at his best when it comes to delivering a good twist, delivering an engaging premise, delivering some creepy, awkward characters. And then, of course, we have Split, Dragon, and Split. I don't know. I still need to rewatch that one for our discussion, but that one might be among the best in his career. Like, that one might be up there with something like The Sixth Sense or Signs. Having said that, Dragon, through my whole long-winded soliloquy here of Shyamalan's career, one movie stands out above them all. Like, one movie to me is the definitive Shyamalan masterpiece, and that's the movie that we're going to be breaking down today. Unbreakable is, like, honest to God, Dragon, after revisiting it and rewatching it and just kind of realizing just how big of an impact this movie had on me from a creative storytelling level when I was like freaking 11 years old seeing this for the first time in theaters. Yeah, this is maybe one of my favorite movies of all time, Dragon. Like, low-key one of my favorite movies of all time. I just think there is so much to uncover and unpack with this movie. I mean, it is just, to me, this film is just ridiculously ahead of its time because it redefined comic book movies and the comic book genre before there was even a comic book genre. I mean, it's almost creepy and prophetic how nowadays we're trying to get to movies like Logan, these sort of like uber realistic takes on the superhero formula. And Unbreakable is, frankly, Dragon, as much as I love Logan, Unbreakable is a better movie than Logan that does the realistic superhero thing even more realistic than Logan does. Like, Unbreakable really sets a precedent for me, man. It might be my favorite superhero movie of all time, if I'm being completely honest, just because of just how much of a deconstruction it is, how every single scene is just like incredibly compelling, and just from the very beginning, this movie just kind of puts you on edge and really just kind of never lets you go from scene to scene. I mean, this is a modern masterpiece, Dragon. There's no other way to put it. This is I highly doubt Shyamalan's ever going to make something this good ever again.
Well, I don't really agree with. I don't really think the whole better than Logan necessarily fits this, but that's I respect that opinion though. I'll give you that. I mean, this is great. Don't get me wrong. Let me.
This movie's more realistic than Logan at the very least.
Well, I mean, it's, again, I think it's an unfair comparison, but let's. I don't want to split hairs with that. Let's backpedal the whole connection with Shyamalan thing real quick. So for me, so I'm not. I've seen a number of M. Night Shyamalan movies. I'm by no means like an M. Night Shyamalan aficionado by any stretch. I kind of realized like, oh yeah, I have seen a number of his movies. I don't consider myself a Shyamalan guy. However, the few things that I believe me, I'm not fresh on like a lot of the films in his catalog. I've seen a number of them. Like I've sat through The Last Airbender, regretfully, and more than After Earth than I'm proud of. I've sat through a few of those, but the E-Train saga, as it were. The E-Train saga is something that I have been invested in, and Unbreakable specifically, I would agree with you. For me, is always my go-to for M. Night Shyamalan. When I think of like the great stuff that M. Night Shyamalan has done, what I like to think of when I think of M. Night Shyamalan, I'm going to Unbreakable. A lot of people go to The Sixth Sense. Go to Unbreakable. Unbreakable is like I feel
like The Sixth Sense is a movie that relies on its twist, and Unbreakable is a movie that's enhanced by its twist.
See, that's the thing. So the way I came to know M. Night Shyamalan in the first place is I think like a lot of people, perhaps, like I wasn't there at the very beginning of Shyamalan's becoming, as it were. I wasn't there at the start of it. Again, I do find your comparison to Hitchcock very interesting. I've never heard that before, and I gotta say, when you bring that up, it's like, yeah, that's kind of a
Dragon. I think it's a far more accurate comparison than the Spielberg thing they were trying to throw around.
It is. That is you're absolutely right. It's eons better of a comparison. Of course, like is he as good as Hitchcock? Heck no, no one is. But by the same token, like
I will say Science is in the same league in terms of crafting suspense, though.
Sure. But that's the thing. So M. Night Shyamalan, I knew him in the sense of we all kind of. I think a lot of people's introduction to M. Night Shyamalan is how he's kind of permeated in the culture in parody and kind of the gag sense of like the twist guy. He's like, what the twist? I think we all. That's the thing. Like, what
he did a lot for his meme career, Dragon.
I gotta be honest. Like, I don't know if that was my first introduction. I don't know if that was my first introduction to him necessarily, but again, that's when I was thinking of like M. Night Shyamalan, the man. I'm thinking of those gags and kind of
like
parody.
if that wasn't your first introduction to him as a filmmaker, that was definitely your first introduction to him as a personality.
Certainly, and again, as a trope as well, kind of the M. Night Shyamalan twist. It's like a patented thing. You know, in film, the twist again. Now, I kind of retook the term twist in a movie to an extent because it's almost his signature. Kind of adopted that as a signature. Where again, before it was just kind of like we've had terms like MacGuffin, and I'm not saying it's the same thing, but we've had terms like MacGuffin or like kind of surprise endings, and I think Shyamalan just kind of found a way of kind of retaking twist and kind of making that into a style that he's kind of worked into all, if not most of his films. Because I remember looking into it, and again, I haven't watched these films necessarily, but in the very beginning, Shyamalan he kind of got his bones in directing kind of studio movies before he really did M. Night Shyamalan movies, which essentially were kind of more personal, almost indie movies for a lower budget than, of course, what he would go on to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to start. So anyway, for me though, I do know this for a fact. I do know Unbreakable was my first Shyamalan movie, and still my favorite Shyamalan film to this day. It's interesting. It's interesting. Sorry, let me rephrase it. It's an interesting, grounded approach to a superhero movie that's not restrained by being that, because Tiki, this is made during a time, it's made during it's 2000, the same year X-Men's coming out, but I don't know which came out first, but by the same token, X-Men and Unbreakable had the same constraint applied to them. They have to be grounded. They can't fully embrace the superheroes in the comic book medium. We can't do the yellow spandex, to quote Wolverine from again, we're pulling from all sorts of Logan tonight, folks. It's like like Wolverine, the X-Men movie, we can't go full spandex and everything, and that was kind of the business back in the early 2000s. We were very afraid to do costumes and go fully formed, and that really showed on these iconic characters like the X-Men, and we kind of mock it these days because like, oh man, what were they smoking? Why didn't they go full force with the costumes? It works so well now, and we're doing it all over the place with the superhero movies now. However, on the flip side of that, you have something like Unbreakable, kind of a sleeper superhero movie. Something that's not restrained out of fear, but it's restrained itself to say something. It's saying something about the medium. It's saying it's for a story reason that we're not doing, we're not going full costume. We're not going full we're kind of jumping off buildings in a single bound type superhero movie or type comic book film. So again, it's restrained with purpose, and I think that's the most admirable quality about Unbreakable. I think it's one of the reasons that it kind of, again, it's kind of like that sleeper success in so many ways, and I don't know, it's always stuck with me. I guess. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Dragon, the way this movie was advertised, man, I'll never forget the ad campaign for this movie because I was there from the very beginning. Even if I was very young, I still appreciated The Sixth Sense. Like, The Sixth Sense was one of the first movies to really scare the crap out of me as a little kid, Dragon. I mean, that movie, there's some moments in that movie that still get under my skin based on the childhood trauma part of The Sixth Sense. And, I just remember the trailers for Unbreakable and what everyone was talking about. It's like, hey, Bruce Willis, he survived a train crash and he's a lone survivor. Dragon, nobody was thinking superhero. Everyone was thinking ghost. Everyone was thinking that this was somehow like a weird continuation of the twist that Shyamalan had set forth in The Sixth Sense. Like we're gonna once again be exploring like morality and the afterlife and everything. Like that's how Unbreakable was advertised to the masses, Dragon. It was basically like, oh look, Bruce Willis is in this really weird kind of caught between life and death sort of scenario yet again. Hey, you liked that the first time it happened in The Sixth Sense. And so literally, Dragon, in 2000, not one single person went into Unbreakable thinking superhero movie, like at all. It was not in the public conscious.
Oddly enough, that's kind of the reverse of why it took me so long to watch Unbreakable in the first place. I've seen that title and I never really gravitated towards it until I kind of heard what the premise was for the whole thing. It's like, oh my god, that sounds very fascinating. It sounds very interesting. These two characters, having a whole realization arc, and of course the superhero medium. Like, I thought that was a great idea, but I never would have known it just going off the title alone. Unbreakable. It sounds like a generic like a movie that it's like almost like an FX or like like a sci-fi movie of the week type thing, where it sounds just so much like okay, you watch this on TV with commercials all the time. It's like one of those things, right? Okay, so I guess all that said, let's get into the background. Like, what gets us a movie like Unbreakable? All right. So, okay, let me put it to you this way. So, M. Night Shyamalan, way back when, he was toying with something Tiki and I are huge fans of, the three-act structure. Not just three-act structure, but specifically he was toying with kind of the three-act structure of comics and I presume the superhero film. Because here's the thing, Tarantino, he when he talks about, he loves Unbreakable. I don't know if he still feels that way, but he's always loved Unbreakable, from what I understand. And he always used the Superman comparison. Basically, he always said, like, what if Superman, basically kind of Iron Giant style, didn't know he was Superman? What if that was a movie? And by that comparison, that makes me wonder if M. Night Shyamalan was looking at the most famous example of a three-act structure in superhero movies before that point, which was, the Richard Donner Superman. Like, the whole movie, it's a very long movie, but it's a very long version of the three-act structure. That's essentially what that movie is, like a really long third act, It was Krypton, Smallville, and of course Metropolis. So I wouldn't be surprised if he looked to that as when he was toying with three-act structures of comics. Like, there's a question like how there's a thing amongst comic book fans who go into this movie because M. Night Shyamalan seems like a guy who's, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to cast any dispersion with M. Night Shyamalan. There's always been like a rumor that M. Night Shyamalan, or like a wonder that maybe he was just he was not really a comic book reader, but he was fascinated by the medium, and he was just kind of freshly getting into it when he was making Unbreakable. And basically this kind of went wild, because think about how Unbreakable starts. The Unbreakable starts with all these really kind of obvious factoids about comics at the very start. And they're it's kind of a strange thing. It's a little strange.
Dragon, I get that sense way more when it comes to the the movie that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But Unbreakable, I do think that what Shyamalan was interested in specifically was this whole idea of the superhero being the modern myth. You know what I mean? And much like Christopher Nolan, he was very interested in the whole idea of deconstructing the superhero and, who can be a superhero.
Certainly. So again, it's a question of like how into the medium he was, but definitely by the story potential and the whole modern mythology angle. Absolutely, I would absolutely assume that was the driving force behind the whole why go to comic books for the three-act structure, because you can do a lot of things with three-act structure. But again, the most dramatic and most relatable thing, the most thing like people of any generation have bought a comic at least once in their life from a stand for someone or for themselves. And they're familiar with kind of that story that's told very visually and very kind of panel by panel style. Even if you just read the newspaper, you're going to see the comics in a kind of a vaguely comic strip way. You're going to have something kind of similar to that medium anyway. So he's thinking about comics and then kind of the superhero genre, presumably the superhero movies as well. And he's thinking about three-act structure. So he tries, okay, I'm going to do a superhero movie. He's plotting out the three acts, but he's having trouble cracking the story. However, while he's having trouble cracking the story, he has a realization. He loves Act 1, and by proxy, he realizes, I want to tell an origin story. That's where I'm having the most fun. And ordinarily, again, like the way Superman goes, the origin is the majority of Act 1, then we kind of go from there. But you know what? Why not? And again, this is the Unmer, folks. I know it sounds really just kind of like, well, duh, but this is back then, folks. You doing a whole origin film.
This was, like I said, this was back when the comic book genre was a joke here.
Especially when trying to bring it to film, there were disasters after disasters especially in the '90s period. That's specifically going from the '90s to the early 2000s. Again, before X-Men, honestly, is when superhero films were having the most trouble. Again, kind of the post between Batman, Robin, and before X-Men. Well, Blade was good, but big commercial name brand. Anyway, so the point is, he realizes he wants to do an origin story, which again had rarely been done into varying, like last time he had an origin movie was Steel, and that went so well with Steel. The origin of Steel, remember? Anyway, no, okay. But in all seriousness, so he singles on doing the origin movie, basically a whole movie that's based on Act 1. Like, what if Act 1 was the whole movie? So he stored some ideas away for other films that came out in very interesting ways. And before you get to that, team, I'll let you walk the folks through that. Just one millisecond here. He gets Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis, who at this time they've been in a couple movies together, most prominently. And I imagine this was the one that gave him the big light bulb moment to get both of these guys. Die Hard 3, that was huge. Before this movie, they were paired together, kind of in a buddy movie essentially. Says, well, why don't I get these two guys? They play together so well. What if we just made them kind of, instead of like kind of being in a situation paired together, if I kind of give them a paralleling arc? So he always had him in mind for the roles that they signed on. You got to remember, this is post Sixth Sense. And of course, Sixth Sense, people are going crazy. They're going wild, especially for Bruce Willis. And of course, I'm sure Bruce Willis like, well, Sixth Sense definitely kind of got my name bolstered up there. So what do you got, M. Night? I'm there for you, buddy. One of those things. So they go to Touchstone, which, folks, again, for anyone who's forgotten, especially all these Disney buyouts and everything going on these days, Disney did own Touchstone, which, again, could release some edgier movies, which, of course, would include Unbreakable, as un-Disney-like as it seems. The Touchstone banner it means Unbreakable and Shyamalan is linked to Disney in some way. It's interesting. And, again, Shyamalan had a lot of clout at this time, and that's kind of what sold him on Touchstone. And the backtrack a little here. So again, Tiki, what were some of those story ideas that were kind of stored away for other movies?
Yeah, I mean, importantly, there was the whole sequence. Probably the most famous sequence in the film, late on in the third act, where David Dunn is fully coming into his powers. He's got the jumpsuit. He's tracking people using his spidey sense that he has while touching people. And of course, he comes upon that janitor guy, Dragon. Now, importantly, this janitor guy, I'm not sure exactly how far Shyamalan had developed the whole idea of the split personalities thing, but I do know that the whole idea, the whole genesis of the Kevin Michael Crumb character from Split, like essentially, if that janitor guy had a backstory, it would be the closest thing to Split that we would have gotten in the 2000s. Like it might not have been like beat by beat what we eventually get in Split with Kevin Michael Crumb, but at the very least, Dragon, from what I've heard, at the very least, it's the whole idea is it's a guy who loves to have people in these captivity situations, and who does have some sort of like alternating personalities. I assume in the original pitch for it, the whole idea was maybe more a bipolar type of thing, right? Where he switched from like really angry to really happy and back and forth like that. I really doubt that the whole idea of like the beast and the 24 different personalities and everything was there from the beginning.
But essentially
that was the genesis, Dragon. That was kind of the the germ of an idea that kind of led to this whole bizarre connected tissue franchise that we have right now.
And essentially what happened was, David Dunn needed someone to go up against. David Dunn had someone to go up against in kind of the third act of this giant one-act movie. And this origin movie, and in doing so, they wanted to beef him up a little in terms of like what his substance was as a character. But then M. Night realized, wait a minute, no, I got to really show the parallel between David Dunn and Elijah Price. Therefore, I don't have room for developing this third character. Therefore, I just need to make him an obstacle versus a character who's kind of stored away the genesis of, okay, just a really deranged killer who we can have like a big kind of altercation with, and kind of stored that away for another day. And there's some more. We're kind of gilding the lily. We're kind of gilding the lily here, folks. There's a little bit more to this story, but we're not going to get into it all here, which we'll do some other times in kind of the E-Train kind of saga, as it were. So again, also as Tiki mentioned, this was marketed as an M. Night Shyamalan movie instead of a superhero film, which of course proved a little tricky, especially in the marketing. Like, I think this film would have gotten more attention and more box office if it was marketed as a superhero movie, but what would the fun be in that? All right, so all that said, I guess a little synopsis of the plot here, folks. Again, in case you haven't seen it in a while, or in case you want to just be a little refresher, so we're not lost, kind of say, I want to get my money's worth in that podcast where I paid nothing for it. We're going to tell you what happens in the movie. Okay, so here's the plot in a nutshell. So, a depressed security guard by the name David Dunn gets into a train crash. The train crash. And is the sole survivor without a scratch on him. How miraculous. This attracts the attention of Elijah Price, comic fan and gallery owner, with bones as brittle as glass, due to growing up with osteogenesis imperfecta. It basically means again he has brittle bones, part of a genetic disorder. It's stage 1, so he's not completely, like stage 4, you'd probably be dead if you took a step. Stage 1, it's just like lifelong condition. Not happy stuff, trust me. So Elijah tells David he believes that he has the opposite of his condition, which means he may be an unbreakable superhero. Which leads to a list of the some Isaiah. It leads to a lot of tension at home with his kind of fragile marriage. And Elijah is we see Elijah's pursuit in determining if David has powers, which leads to David unlocking memories, some repressed memories, and testing his abilities, which ultimately leads to David using his extrasensory perception. That's kind of what his spider senses, I think, technically called the extrasensory perception. Uses this ability, this secondary ability, to stop a crime. Big old battle with an evil janitor who could have been Kevin Wendell Crump if he applied himself. No, I'm just kidding. It's this janitor character. Which leads to David feeling happy for a change. David feels happy, and the ending, David and Elijah learn they are the respective hero and villain of the story, and they accept their respective roles. And that's the movie.
All right, so let's break this down character by character. We only have 3 major roles to go through. The other characters we can kind of go through, sort of, lay the connective tissue between them. So let's, of course, start with David Dunn. Dragon, this is one of the most fascinating characters that M. Night Shyamalan has ever crafted, and it's like far and away the best acting I've ever seen Bruce Willis give in any movie.
Yeah, it's a great understated performance for Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis, look, at times Bruce Willis can be definitely more now.
Hey guys, want some of my Bruce Willis chicken?
Oh God, I love that you made that reference. But geez. Anyway, the Bruce Willis in the later years, he's definitely become kind of infamously a difficult actor to get along with unless he respects you. It's like earn the respect. You get sometimes he can be a jerk if he doesn't respect you. Otherwise, it's just going to be he'll be a nightmare in the press junkets, to say the least. But the point is, Bruce Willis. This is an understated performance for him, where he's not just kind of playing kind of like the cool action hero. He's kind of playing a more thoughtful character. Again, kind of like Shyamalan has, I guess. I mean, unless there's anything I'm missing here, I think Shyamalan's going to play the more thought-provoking, kind of soft-spoken Bruce Willis side of things. I think M. Night Shyamalan's probably been the best at getting a great layered performance out of Bruce Willis over the years.
I'd say maybe it's between Shyamalan and then Terry Gilliam.
That's a fair point. Right. Anyway, so Bruce Willis here again. It's a layered, subtle performance, which is so refreshing to see him do after a while. No, we all love John McClane, early John McClane, but by the same token, again, it's always nice to see something refreshing. This is the first time I think we saw bald Bruce Willis, and he was a nice guy for a change.
Right.
I think honestly, when he lost the hair, he just got kind of mad at the world. If you really think about it, that's kind of when it all went south for him. I mean, Justin Long was kind of dodgy with Justin Long. I mean, again, he was still, he's kind of happy, slightly happy.
Like he was losing his hair in The Sixth Sense, but he still kind of had like a side hair thing going on.
That's the thing. I mean, when he went full cue ball, it's just when he kind of got mad at the world. If you really look at it. Anyway, also Robert Rodriguez got a really good performance out of Bruce Willis. I keep glazing over that.
So with David Dunn, there's so many good connective tissue story points here with him. I mean, I love that first scene on the train. It tells you so much about this guy and the state of his life, and the fact that he is awkward. He's making people uncomfortable. He's taking off his wedding ring to flirt with this random girl on the train, you know, and Dragon, those moments kind of, I feel like those moments aren't meant to immediately not care about this guy. They're meant to kind of put you in the headspace of like, yeah, this guy is just a very, very emotionally broken person. You know what I mean? And that's kind of course, the big like, yeah, symbolic. Get it? Get it? David Dunn is physically unbreakable, but mentally and emotionally, he starts out broken from the offset.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing about David Dunn, from just the jump off from the broken internally point, is that he's just he's an unfulfilled guy, and the arc of the story is really just the guy who's kind of through choices that he's made. He's made choices for an alter ego over his destiny, which of course eventually is the superhero. It's like, what if a guy had the powers of Superman, but he decided to be Clark Kent because he just really, what if he made those choices? What if he made the choice to be for the uninteresting life? It's like, what if Bob Parr didn't kind of get the basically? What if he just kind of lived life as Bob Parr, but not in the insurance business?
And that's the thing that really fascinates me about David's character is that like I feel like it's completely ambiguous throughout how much he knows about his condition, how much he wants to accept his condition, how much he wants to just kind of like push his condition away and pretend it doesn't exist. And these are questions that I feel like David has been grappling with from long before the movie actually starts.
Yes, and I love that. Think about how fascinating this is, Tiki. David Dunn's a character who he flirts with exceptionalism all his life. Like again, it's in his face, and again, there's a whole subconscious angle with David Dunn. Of course, like how many memories are repressed, and of course, a lot of this could feed into the extrasensory perception. If I'm looking for any logic, again, it's fine either way. I'm just if you want to connect it a little bit, you could say maybe that's why he has. Maybe it's a symptom of the extrasensory perception. Maybe that's why he has so many blocked memories. It's a maybe, but regardless, the point is David in his life, whether subconsciously he wants the exceptional life and he's just denying himself because he made the choice long ago, but he doesn't know why he made that choice, which is why he's so miserable. He doesn't know what he's having a troubled marriage because he just doesn't remember that he made the choice for that life, so he doesn't appreciate it, which in itself is kind of interesting. But beyond that, everything that he has chosen subconsciously is flirting with all the things that he's so good at if he were living up his full potential. Think about it. He works a job in security. A job in security that requires he have a lot of interactions, which of course pays off by the end of the movie. An interaction-based capacity. It requires strength, which he has. It requires finesse. Again, like kind of the sniffing out trouble. Again, kind of the superheroic quality. Again, the extrasensory perception and intuitiveness as well. All that again, all of this reflects his powers. All this reflects him living at his full potential. But again, so close to it. Again, hence the whole security job in choice. But again, so close, but he's denying that to himself, and he doesn't know why. And I love that he's making an effort. He's making an effort to connect after he's kind of given a second chance at life. And again, he's trying to mend himself. He doesn't know where to start. Where okay, I'm the sole survivor of this train crash. Where again, in theory, I should have died, but I'm still here. So I guess he was thinking about moving to New York and essentially leaving his wife. Well, basically he was on a path. I shouldn't say that he wasn't going to leave his wife, but he was on a path where the end result, where he's just going to become more and more detached to the point where he's already removing the wedding ring because he's unfulfilled in life. It's only a few more steps before he just files for the divorce. That's pretty much what they're kind of saying, right?
This is one of the things about this movie, Dragon, is that like there's so many good moments that I feel like three apiece between the two of us does not cover it. And we have to talk about that moment where he emerges in that hospital where everyone else, every single fucking family member in that whole hospital is staring at him and knowing that they aren't going to get good news and that he's the lucky one. He's the one who gets to walk out. I mean, it's fuck, man. I mean, there's just, oh God, there's some existential like shit in the movie, man.
There is. So he's basically David's on a path of I like that Dave. Well, now you got me thinking about the hospital scene. Real quick about the hospital scene. Okay, so there's this really beautiful shot in the hospital scene. You know what I'm talking about? Basically, that great tracking shot, I guess, where David's
That's
getting
what
the
I'm
news.
saying, man. I mean, that is like one of the that might be one of the great shots of the new century so far in terms of cinematography. Trying it.
I mean when he's getting the news from Michael Kelly, the Michael Kelly doctor. Of course, is a fun little House of Cards thing when you think about, hey, Robin Wright and Michael Kelly are both in this movie. What a world! And of course, years later, they'd be on a really series with a really weak ending. Irony. So, I'm sorry. My point is that in that scene, I love that a man is dying before him, which would make him like. It's this really kind of callous it's callous, but in a really memorable way. It's like not callous with malice. I know. I'm sorry. It sounds like Dr. Seuss in there, but it's a really good bit where we push in on as he's getting the news. Like, why is that so? Why is it such a big deal? Because you and this man are the only survivors. It's not looking good for this. And between you and me, it's not looking good for this guy right now. You're going to walk out of here, and you're going to be the sole survivor of this thing. So he's preparing him for that. And again, it's pushing on his reaction, just kind of again the really subtle, realistic reaction. How do you take that news sort of moment? You know?
Right.
Again, I'm gonna read into this, make it sound more important than it probably is, but you never know with Shyamalan. I love that. As one man dies, David's going to be able to live again or get that second life, where he's going to be kind of have some big again. He's going to have a second chance in life to make these choices again that he made years before, but he didn't quite recall. He's now in a proactive position. With that, again, this kind of leads him down a path of self-discovery. And again, basically, again, that thing we always talk about, the heroic choice, the moment of change. He makes the heroic choice to embrace his destiny kind of by the end of this arc, you know. And I love that he's in this is such a rare line to walk with David Dunn. I mean, it's a rare line to walk in general because we see it done wrong so many times. And I love that with this character, we kind of did it right, where he's skeptical but not stupid. So many times, for comedic purposes and for other purposes, we show a character who's like, these extraordinary circumstances befall them. It's like, no, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. I'm not listening. La la la. Where it's happening, and he's just questioning it because again, it sounds a little hard to believe, but
I think the movie has such an awesome pace to it, man. And I say that saying that this movie has a very slow pace to it, but it's got a fucking deliberate pace to it, man. It's just like. It's just a tightrope act of delivering information. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, so we start out and we're in David's head constantly throughout the whole movie. You know, of course, we get that sort of like like if the train is the inciting incident, then the inciting question is, have you ever been sick?
Yes. And, oh my God, I love that.
Like, you know, that's just kind of like brings about a head trip in its own right. You know, it's just kind of like it makes everyone in the audience think like, yeah, wait a minute, when is the last time I got sick? You know?
It's great. Oh boy, and I love that so much because I love it. Kind of has like a really kind of pleasantry. It was like a very pleasant payoff where he gets a raise just for asking the question, "Have I ever been sick?" And again, the guy just interprets this as like, "Okay, you made a very strategic point there. You never been sick, therefore you're getting $40 more or something." However, I just love that. He just asked a simple question, he got a raise. Good for him. But no, speaking of pleasantries, though, I do love this. Again, the best thing I can say about David Dunn in this movie is again, it's a simple arc when you really boil it down. It's a simple arc, but before you look at him as like the grand hero arc of it all, which is great, but the emotional arc, the personal arc, kind of the Bob Parr arc, if you will. But again, through David Dunn it's just a journey for a man to be happy. That's what the movie's about. It's like despite the risk and this new lifestyle choice that he's made, again, he's going to save people at risk to himself. And, you know, again, it's not a huge risk to himself, but again, he's just kind of taking a proactive stance to kind of change his life and kind of take the choice not made years before. And again, in doing so, it's the first night he's kind of woken up happy or kind of not with that kind of gaping hole of sadness for a change, you know. It just, I don't know, it's what it's saying he's always going to be happy, probably not, but still just for a moment, he kind of felt not sadness for a moment, which for him, again, it's kind of a journey to happiness, and again, kind of a connection with his son. It's like a lot of really beautiful stuff there. I thought.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so speaking of his son, man, holy crap, Joseph Dunn. This kid might be on the same level as Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, man. He really might be.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. A lot of people are probably gonna say, "How dare you?" But you know what, Haley Joel Osment, I gotta be honest. I think sometimes kind of coasted off of Sixth Sense for that's pretty much what he's done. He's just kind of coasted off of the Sixth Sense. I think we're gonna overestimate Haley Joel Osment and some other things. Like he's important. Well, yeah, he had a good performance, but what else has he done really good? Because AI was dicey and all the other stuff. I don't know.
I mean, he's done a couple good things since then. Of course, I feel like a lot of people know him as Sora in Kingdom Hearts. That's the big thing for him.
That's fair.
Uh,
Anyway,
Go ahead.
so Joseph.
Yes. Man, I mean, this kid is like the center of some of the most memorable set pieces in the movie Dragon, and I didn't even know it until I rewatched this movie. Like, as we were kind of talking about how to break down this movie, at first I kind of thought like, oh, let's just do David and Elijah. And then I rewatched it and I was like, no, Joseph has he has a huge arc in this thing, man. And there's a couple moments with Joseph that I don't want to break down right now because they're part of my favorite scene selections. But I mean, suffice to say, it's stuff that will not leave me anytime soon, Dragon.
Well, broad spectrum with Joe here. With Joseph, he's trying to bond with his father. And again, the father, again, because of just kind of that sadness that he just can't explain away. He's just always felt kind of like basically he's like one step away from just leaving. He's flirting with a job to take him out of the place, and already like we have that really telling line. Teak, I think it says I love that Charlie's hitting these beats with these really just telling kind of lines that kind of speak volumes. Where uh, Joseph's he's in school, and I forget if he got into a fight or whatnot, but yeah, I think he. Well, the point is, he's called to the David's called to the school,
Uh-huh.
and he's asking like, is he okay? Like sick, is he sick or anything? And asking this, he's like, Audrey usually handles the school stuff, or I don't know. Wait, no, he has the better line. He says Audrey handles Joseph's stuff, which again speaks volumes. That yeah, he's kind of an absentee dad. Again, he's because again, he can't just get excited about things. He can't really. He's not really a mentor that much. He's just kind of like he likes the kid, of course, like anyone would like their kid, but he's just again he can't get excited about life at this point.
Yeah, and that just makes the whole dynamic between Joseph and David I don't know, it's so compelling, man. The moments where Joseph is just like so desperately wanting to coax out of David his full potential, and he's like, like David's just like, I don't know what to tell you, Joseph. I'm just an ordinary man. And then Joseph with just tears in his eyes and his voice cracking, he's just looking at his dad, and he's just like, no, you're not.
It's kind of like the more dramatic, serious
stuff, man.
It's funny though. It's kind of like the more dramatic, serious version of the Santa Claus when you really think about it, though.
God.
The whole "you are too, Santa" that whole thing. In a way, it's right. It is kind of the same story in a way when you really.
But obviously, it's much more powerful and dark, and yeah.
Certainly, but anyway, in all seriousness, though, I do love kind of the fantasy versus reality storytelling that we kind of have we have going here with these two, and the fact that again, he's bonding with his father over powers, but again, it's admitting to crazy things and accepting that. And ultimately, what they do is they kind of meet in the middle, and it benefits everybody. Again, they're both kind of they're closer, and again, they kind of have the secret from presumably they have this secret from mom, but even if they don't, it's still just like this little moment where it's like you were right, and it's a beautiful moment.
Uh-huh.
All right. Okay.
Okay, and then finally, Elijah Price.
Yes, but real quick, just to build up Glass, just a smidge more. We should talk about Audrey for a brief spell here. I like that Audrey, she works in physical therapy, and I like that she's a healer. Again,
I don't have much to say about her. I think to me, she's more of a plot device than anything else. My favorite element with her is that kind of mythic flashback scene we get of Bruce Willis saving her, like young Bruce Willis saving her in the car accident. And then, of course, in that flashback, it's revealed that even back then, he didn't have a fucking scratch on him. I don't know. That stuff works. I just like with Audrey, man, it's this weird thing where it's like the wife just feels a little bit disconnected and unpleasant, which is I guess the point of what we're trying to experience through Will's eyes, but it's not fun to watch. I don't know.
I'm going to give it
favorite part of the movie.
Tiki, I'm going to give it a little bit more credit here. I'm going to say this. I'm going to give more credit in thinking this is intentional, and that I think what Shyamalan's saying with Audrey is that, you know, she's holding David back, and we're not shying away from that. So we're seeing kind of the drag that she is. But again, she's not a bad person. She's not annoying at all, really. She's just kind of like, she's anti-violence, which of course is counterintuitive to him. And again, we saw in that flashback, she was the reason that he held himself back, and he's regretting that decision in life. So again, she's kind of like an accurate reflection of, you know, sometimes, folks, life's not peachy. Sometimes you make compromises for love and for family, and you know it's not all gonna, again, it's not gonna be all sunshine. So, anyway, so of course Audrey is the great kind of segue into Glass, because of course she has an interaction with Glass. It's very interesting.
Yep. Everyone has an interaction with Glass Dragon. It's like the exact opposite of the movie Glass.
Right. So let's talk about Mr. Glass, otherwise known as Elijah Price.
One of the great characters ever in screen history for me.
To me, I think this is the most interesting Shyamalan character. For me, over David Dunn, I'd go for Mr. Glass.
No doubt. This guy is, like, to me, he is such an enigma, and he's also just, frankly, Sam Jackson is, we've never seen him before, and we will probably never see him again.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Glass, he has this fascinatingly tragic backstory. You know, he has this. I gotta tell you, rewatching the movie, I completely forgot, because, you know, I saw Unbreakable all the way through, and the very first time I saw it, and then of course I go back to it. When I go back to it, though, I always kind of go back to it after, like, the opening sequence. I watch it. You know, basically, if it's on, I'd watch it all the way to the end. But
that opening sequence was another major contender for my favorite moments. Dragon.
That's the thing, Tiki. I completely, again, it's been years. I think I've only seen that once. The opening scenes of this movie, like maybe once, twice.
I mean, talk about a movie that talk about a scene that just sets the tone, right?
It's the perfect opening, and again, thematic with what happens by the end of this movie. Again, it's basically being an origin. Well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm going to put a pin in that. Just remind me about origin talk, okay? Remind me about origin talk. But yes, Tiki, that opening tells you everything you need to know about Glass, and of course we commit to a lot of themes and everything. But again, we see that birth defect. It's a really traumatizing scene, the way this movie opens. Again, like did you drop this baby like that? Oh my God, it's a haunting scene. Just the doctor completely horrified by what he's seen, and
it's a haunting scene just based entirely on the power of suggestion.
Exactly. I mean, life gave this guy a raw deal early on. I mean, early on, and fiction. There's some. I'm trying not to spend all day talking about Glass here. Okay, so forgive me. Okay, I'm just trying to talk about Mr. Glass here. Is that I love that life gave him a raw deal early on, and fiction gave him his purpose and his drive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these tales of abilities and conditions inspired him from such a depressing place. And again, if you want to parallel it with David, again, like David's kind of David's kind of the modern example of, okay, he's kind of his arc for the whole movie is kind of getting to a kind of a happy place, and Elijah's kind of starts earlier when he's a kid in the 70s, kind of getting from that place where he kind of gets out of that funk, and he's kind of inspired by comics. Of course, leads it's the tide that raises all ships in our story. Technically, it's very interesting stuff. You know, he's intelligent. He's business savvy. You know, and I
love the back and forth that he has with David, where it's like David is very, very suspicious of him, very reluctant of him, but by the same token, this guy is the only one in David's life that has any sort of concrete answers for him, right? It's like, you know, he's the only one that he can actually go to and be like, okay, you can tell me what's going on here. And that's like it's almost like a marriage of convenience for David. You know what I mean?
Well, it's even better than that, Tiki. It's the fact that he's not there for answers. He's the guy posing the questions that David's never asked himself. He finds the envelope. Have you ever been sick? How great an entrance is that for these two characters to meet?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and that's the thing. So, just to get back to the business side of things, one of my favorite things. I love these at gallery, and I love the whole limited edition thing. I do, and I love that. I'm reading into this, bear in mind, but I always like to read in that he's business savvy because early in life he had priorities. You know, he had very different priorities when he was a young man. You have to be basically you have to kind of think things through. And again, of course, like if you had bones made of glass, you would be really wary about what you do with things, and maybe that kind of translates into a kind of a business savvy mindset. Basically, it was an easy buy for me. I liked it. And I love that he cares about his art and his collection. One of the great scenes, almost like a very Kingpin Daredevil season 1-esque. Actually, let me just get it out of the way here. So, my favorite thing, I think the reason Mr. Glassborough is my favorite character, again, like kind of Freudian way, or not a Freudian way, but kind of a subconscious thing. He's got a style and a motif of a villain, yet he has a great Kingpin arc of discovery that he is. There's so many Daredevil season 1 Kingpin things to this story that I still love on a rewatch. It just jazzes me out of my mind that, oh my God, he has like a self-discovery arc like the Kingpin had in season 1 of Daredevil. And again, we also have an art gallery scene that's very indicative of like a really great Kingpin art gallery scene. So again, he's got a few things. It's the fact that he cares about his collection, and because it had such a direct, and no pun intended here, it had such a direct impact on him, that he cares about his collection. Like, he won't sell it to a 4-year-old because that's very disrespectful to the medium. Like, no, your 4-year-old can't have this piece of artwork. Again, comic artwork. They just track down. And
that's such a good thesis statement scene for the character, I think.
It is, and again, it's like it's pretty much rabbit in a snowstorm for glass, and I love it. Again, years later, again, it's been a while since I've really watched it. Again, I don't know if I've watched it. Again, I've checked in pieces there. I don't know if I've watched it after having seen Daredevil season 1. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, it's gosh, that motif, the whole thing's great. And again, it's the last thing really.
One of my favorite moments with Glass happens in the stadium where he's like chasing after the guy that Dunn previously profiled. And Dragon, you just the desperation, he falls down the stairs and you can like literally hear his bones crack, right? And the look on Sam Jackson's face is just sheer agony, right? Like just sheer pain. But then in an instant, Elijah sees the gun sticking out of the guy's pants. And in an instant, Elijah's pain transforms on his face into like, oh my God, I am right. Holy shit, I am right. My world is like transforming around me. This is like the start of something.
But even better, it's the way that shot too is upside down, and just like the other agony like turns to a calm of like, yes.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, Dragon. Like, I feel like with this movie, easily you and I could both have 6 favorite scenes.
Well, of course, we assumed we were going to limit it to 3, therefore we settled on 3.
No, we're limited it to 3. That's fine. I'm happy with the 3 that I picked. But
seriously, you could hit any scene in this movie.
There's a lot of contenders for best scene in this movie. I mean, it's like there's MVP scenes throughout its runtime.
But again, just the zero back on the moment you were talking about and what I was getting at with the whole Kingpin thing is I love that he's on a pursuit that again is sympathetic and some vaguely noble for himself, but I guess more more selfish than noble, but not in a bad way. He's initially, for what we think before, of course, big reveals and such, but he's on a pursuit to complete himself, complete and discover himself. Again, kind of like Kingpin. Basically, when I keep bringing up the Kingpin books, I keep thinking of the Samaritan speech at the end of Daredevil. You remember the Samaritan speech, of course.
Yeah.
The whole I'm not the ill intent, that whole thing. So, but that's the thing. He's on this pursuit. He's on this journey. Like he's putting himself through so much pain and everything because he's in that wheelchair. For all intents and purposes, he's in that wheelchair again until Glass. Presumably, Brett Brake never got better. Presumably. So, he doesn't want to be alone. He wants to discover himself. But again, all of this at a very haunting cost. That is kind of it's kind of a chilling, remorseless acceptance that he has by the end of this movie. It's a chilling, remorseless acceptance of like, I've done these things and I accept that, but now I have clarity. Again, the man who again goes by Mr. Glass receives clarity. Clarity, Glass, get it? But let's talk about Mrs. Price is a fascinating character. Let's talk about her for a spell here, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing with her is that she's kind of like just the innocent, loving mother who kind of, it's like it's one of those case studies of like, my God, I raised a monster, but I never in a million years would have imagined that I was raising a monster.
But again, a monster that she's proud of, though, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
delightful thing. She's a great mother, who faced tragedy at birth, like, and again, it's like here's the thing on the rewatch I never would have put together. It just fascinated me with that opening. You see the horror on her face, and you get a sense. I mean, they don't spell this out, but again, that's kind of the glory of it all. Again, it's the mother who gave birth, and the doctor has like a line about like something went wrong in the womb, which again puts blame on the mother, in some respect. Again, it's not her fault by any means. I'm just saying, again, like she would blame herself, I'd imagine. And again, she's kind of, I love that she's not a conventional mother at all. It's like she's just kind of this mother who's like she tells Elijah to get out. We'll touch more on this scene a little bit later, but I love that she's loving and supportive of her son. She's prideful of him, and again, she keeps up. And importantly, I love how she keeps up with the world. Like I want to touch on we'll touch on the big scene a little later on, but I want to touch on the ending with her. The ending with her is great. I love that she's kept up with the world that she introduced her son to. Like she knows about all the exhibits in the gallery, you know. And she's just at the end of the day, she's just happy. Again, it's so funny when you do it. All of them just gonna end happy. That's kind of where the movie. Everyone has a happy ending in a way. It's a tragic realization, but these people who want to be happy. Like she suffers a big trauma at the start of the movie, and she ends up happy. Joseph, same thing. He's kind of sad that his dad's very despondent. At the end, happy. David,
He gets kind of shaken by the revelation at the end, but at the end of the day, he still takes down a supervillain. And then Sam Jackson, his whole thing is like, hey, he gets to become the supervillain, which is what he's always wanted.
That's again, he knows who he is. So yeah, it's kind of everyone ends happy. And with Mrs. Price, she's happy for a much simpler reason, but a delightfully simple reason. She's happy that Elijah made a friend and he's out in the world. That's all she wanted. He's gotten out of the place and he made a friend. Remember, she has that conversation with David. She says, "Oh, I'll tell Elijah you're here." And she's just so happy.
Now I just want to see like the chibi Funko Pop versions of David Dunn and Mr. Glass.
I'm pretty sure I know they have some for Split Teak. I'm pretty sure they've made some for Glass. I don't know 100%, but they actually have made a few.
I'm sure they have one for Dunn too, with the hood and everything. I could just picture it.
I would imagine so. But again, it's like her son. They think about this as a parent, Tiki. Her son overcame adversity, and in her mind, it's like I didn't fail him. I felt like I physically failed him in life, with the birthing process. But I didn't fail him. It's like it's a mother standing by her child no matter what the adversity is, and she stood by him. And look how successful he is. Look how happy he is. Again, that's so moving with her. It's something that fascinates me about Mrs. Price. She's such a great character.
Sure.
All right, so speaking of, we're kind of talking about the ending in general here, so let's talk about the twist.
What a twist! All right, okay. So yeah, this is one of the finest twists Shyamalan has ever done in his career, and the reason I say that is that it is a twist that absolutely enhances the story, but it's not a twist that like radically changes the context of everything you've just seen.
I feel there's a misconception about this twist, TK. I really do.
Okay.
I feel a misconception is everyone goes for the obvious, where they go in the movie and say, "Oh, the twist is Mr. Glass was the bad guy," and of course, if you can maybe be discerning, says, "Well, a name like Mr. Glass could be it could be heroic, but it could also be very sinister and very villainous." In name, you could put that together. However, that's not the twist. The twist is, of course,
the twist is more so the fact that Elijah was willing to go there.
Exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a layer of the whole, he didn't know he was the villain of the story. But again, the villain thing is not the twist. The twist in itself is what he did as a villain. How far? Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
I realized I was parodying the word.
It just kind of throws such a harsh real world element to the whole idea of being a super villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he orchestrated the train crash and at least two other disasters. One of them being a bombing. Like again, there's the Prices. He went to such lengths.
And then I love how tragic this all is because it's David's world just kind of like it's David's world both simultaneously crumbling down around him
And
and
his horizons expanding.
yes.
But
I
you
mean,
know what?
because it's like we get David just he's just speechless. He's just like Jesus Christ. He's like he's like practically on the verge of tears. He's just so shaken by the fact that this friendship that he did kind of cultivate with this man has led to inadvertently this, or that's like the horror of this terrorist attack. This terrorist attack is what ultimately led to this friendship, and it's such a dark kind of like guttural thing to have to deal with.
You can imagine from a story structure how brilliant this is. David's arc is of becoming happy, and just the minute he's happy with life and just visiting Elijah just to say hi, basically after this big twist reveal, it's like learning that your happiness and kind of find acceptance of your purpose is at the cost of learning that you were birthed by the bad guy. That he basically what they did is an '89 twist. That's what it is. It's kind of the old. And again, I don't know if maybe there might be a direct reference to this. I don't know. I don't know. Know what Shyamalan's into in terms of the comic book films. I would imagine like everybody, he saw '89, he saw Superman, he saw the original Superman movie. But looking at it this way, Tiki, it's like the whole "you made me first" idea from '89. It's the whole, in that movie, Batman, Batman kind of was responsible for Jack Napier becoming the Joker, and vice versa. Jack Napier killed the Waynes, therefore they made each other. And by the end of the movie, David Dunn was made, but basically he was woken up to the fact that he had powers by Glass, by orchestrating this whole train crash. Therefore, he was created by his bad guy, and the whole full circleness of the whole. One of the great things about the movie opens with his birth, and it ends with kind of revelation about kind of David's rebirth, and of course basically the birth of both of them going forward, like becoming hero and villain. So again, it opens and as an origin movie, so rarely Tika does an origin movie both begin and end with the birth, but the creation of your heroes and your villains.
Yeah, and you know what? Shyamalan has been criticized time and time again for writing hokey dialogue. But Dragon, holy shit, the Sam Jackson monologue at the end of this movie is just haunting. Like, every word of it is haunting. Especially when the music starts to swell and he's like, he's basically like kind of going into his whole lecture of like, do you know how you can tell who's a supervillain in a comic, David? They often start off as friends, like you and me. But then a certain path in life pulls them apart. And then of course the famous last line of the movie, it was because of the kids, David. They called me Mr. Glass.
I should have known it before, David. The kids. It's just like,
and I mean, I love just the whole idea of Bruce Willis just kind of slowly walking away, knowing what he has to do, knowing that he can never, ever have a relationship with this guy ever again. And not only that, but he has to live with the fact that, his happiness did come at the cost of all those people. And then Elijah just sitting there, just like coming full circle, knowing that after this, he's probably going to get arrested, but just knowing that he did it, he found someone. He's officially like in the game, as it were.
Exactly. All right.
I mean, powerful stuff, man.
Absolutely. Just again, just very. Oh god, it's great. It's all great. We could spend an hour talking about it in itself, just that ending. But oh god, let's.
What do you think of the title cards that come up? Because I've heard mixed things about that.
Tiki, let me put it to you this way. You know how gutsy it is to end the movie right there and have those cards pop up at that moment. Like you end the movie right there, and again, the whole movie is essentially a first act, and definitely it feels that way when you get there because you feel like there's
The
going to
whole
be more
movie you're
story.
building to like, okay, who's going to be the supervillain and what is the supervillain fight going to look like?
In a movie where you go into this movie blind, either whichever way, whether it's coming like, as everyone's kind of marketed to as like it's the Shyamalan movie that we are now learning is a superhero movie, or if you're coming into the expectation it's a superhero movie, you're so enamored by everything, and then it's so rarely do you have like a 1/1000, 2/1000 kind of zenith of a big moment, and then the movie ends, and then you're happy, then you're satisfied with it, or you're blown away by it, and you're kind of processing it, but you're not upset that it just ends there. Rarely does that happen, and I think it succeeds here. But again, it's maybe it's not for everyone, but again, I think it's great. And again, the whole he killed that many people, and I mean, again, he could have just faded to black as he was walking away. Sure, it could have gone that way, but again, it made it feel like something different. It made it feel like it's going full circle in that the movie opens with those really weird comic book factoids.
Uh-huh.
And then it ends with text on the screen.
Like it just put that final kind of like real world documentary style touch on the whole thing.
That's the thing, and also it's fantasy becoming reality. That's the purpose there. It's like, okay, we have like kind of the things about kind of basically what inspired all this. Again, mythology factored in from from modern mythology being comics. That's what how the movie starts, talking about that. And of course, the end's like, okay, now it's leaped off the page into real life. So again, it adds more purpose to it, even if you look at under that venue. So the point is, I think it's great. I think it's fine, and then I think it's great because of just the full circleness of it all. So
all right. Okay, so
pro con.
Let's get into pros and cons. Dragon, do you have any cons in this? Like I said, like maybe the wife could be a little bit more engaging, but the whole point of her character is that she's simply not engaging in Bruce Willis's life. So it's like I can't really complain about that. Honestly, Dragon, I feel like this is a perfect movie. I'm gonna be to say that.
You're gonna be a what?
There is. I'm talking. There is very, very, very little that I would tweak about the way this movie is executed. Like top to bottom, scene to scene, moment to moment. It's pretty much a perfect film.
Well, I got a few cons, but let me emphasize again, none of these are all nitpicks. I just wanted to kind of point out here. These are nitpicks. Again, the whole movie is essentially near perfect, if not perfect in itself, pretty much. But these are like the only things that I think kind of give it that near perfect thing. Is that if you really think about it, you might be like a thread. But it's like a thread. Even if you pulled the thread, the thread would come out, then the thing would look even better. It's kind of a thing. So, the extrasensory perception. It's played well. But it's a bit of a leap for the plot. Like we think about this, the whole shrink thing is so well introduced. The whole like, have you ever been sick? That's all great. That's all wonderful. Extrasensory perception, while again visually, again, I'm not out of no qualms with them having it or how it's shown or any of that. Comes out of nowhere though. Just kind of like there's no real correlation.
The realism department.
That's the thing. So basically, it's a twofold thing, Tiki. One, and this is the main gripe that I have with the movie. I have extrasensory perception, which again kind of comes out of nowhere. But again, it's fun. It's played really well. But the other thing, the links to, I think he blocked too many things. He blocked too many memories. For example, like the pool thing, we need the pool. He needs to black out the whole way. He was the kid who almost drowned in the pool. They have to do that. That's pivotal to the plot. We need that. And you get why he blocked. It's a very traumatic moment. However, again, this is where we hit the dicey territory that, again, I have to connect these things, otherwise they don't really make any sense. I got to connect that the extrasensory thing's messing with his memories, making him block things, but they don't say that, and it's a little hard to, I think it's kind of those are hard dots to connect. Like things like the car accident, like him forgetting that he made the choice with the car accident. Again, it can work, but I don't think it's all there. Is what I'm saying. You follow me?
Dragon, that's the thing. I feel like you and I are reading that flashback differently, because to me, I don't necessarily think that flashback was a revelation. I think that David has been grappling with that choice since it happened, and it's something that kind of like haunts and eats at his everyday, day-to-day waking existence. And that's a big part of why he's so withdrawn at the start of the film. like I said, Dragon, I think even from the very beginning, there's a bit of a subconscious, like there's something not quite right with me on a physical level, but I don't want to acknowledge it. I just want to push it off and try to be the most normal person I can be.
Tell you what, I'm going to meet you in the middle because again, there's great story context you can get from that. However, I will say this, and I don't think you're wrong necessarily. What I do think is that it reads that he's just having yet another. I don't know if it's like in such close proximity because when we have the full revelation, then not too far after, then we have the whole another seemingly blocked member. I like to think that you're right with that, Tiki. I just think it reads the complete. I think in the editing or something just comes across that it's another block memory.
All right.
Anyway, again, nitpick. It doesn't really hurt the movie at all. It's just something. It's like, yeah, maybe one too many.
Keep in mind, I feel like this whole film is kind of designed in a Rorschachian kind of way, where, like, honestly, both our interpretations might be equally right.
Exactly. So that's the thing. So it's really okay, let's see. So here's one. This one, that's a pet peeve that does bother me. Or you say, here's the thing. A lot of people have like the really the really silly gripe that very avid comic book fans will make this silly gripe that I'm not making, but people say, what's with the neon signs that says heroes and villains, and there's like a hero side and a villain side where the comics are? Because it doesn't bother me. Because what if they organized it that way? Who cares? It's fine. That's the nitpick is like comic book shops aren't organized like that. Then why would there be like a section of all heroes and all villains? Which I've never seen that before. Therefore, I don't think
maybe Elijah just wanted to get creative with his organization, Dragon.
That's what I'm saying. I kind of like that idea because you never see it anywhere. I'm saying why are we getting? The point is that's the gripe that everybody makes. I'm not making that gripe. I have a very different gripe. There's also maybe I agree with this one. Okay, here's the one. Why not go all the way with use? I know it's a legal thing, but look, why not go all the way with using either real comics or making them? Because we have Marvel comics in the foreground, yet we can't get the rights to DC. Let me put it to you this way, okay? We have false comics in the forefront, like active comics, not action comics. You know, we have like these false comic book kind of covers. Yet later on, when Elijah Price is kind of having his breakdown, when he's kind of down in the dumps at the comic shop, we see Marvel comics everywhere. They're everywhere. So why look? Even if we don't have the rights to DC, but apparently we got the rights to show Marvel. Why can't we use a Marvel comic? That's the one that got him. Why?
To me, I feel like that might have been a creative choice where they just don't want to draw too much onto recognizable characters.
Yeah, I mean, the only benefit I really saw from that is that we have the color theory worked into the cover, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I mean, that's the only benefit I can really see from that. Otherwise, well, yeah, everybody, I don't know. I just feel they're. That was always a kind of a pet peeve. I see the argument. I don't agree with it. But I don't know. It's just me. Like you already show them all there. It's just going to raise more questions. Like, I've never heard of these guys in the cover. Why not just use recognized ones we're already showing? I don't know. Let's see. Glass also in that comic book shop. I think Glass is being a little overly difficult. Like what the whole he keeps steering his leg into the shop to be difficult. I don't know.
I'll agree. That was a scene that I feel like maybe drags on a little too long.
Like that to me just feels like he just keeps steering his leg like a jerk into wrecking all the plays and everything. I'm just thinking like, okay, basically my thought is, we need this scene so he gets the idea from the one comic that falls in his lap. Really? We need to go that far? Why can't you just find the comic in the shop and then just get the idea?
All right, you know what? I'll give that to you, Dragon. I'll totally give that one to you. That one's kind of a gimme.
That, and it's not a major problem, but last thing I have is it's a little slow. Let me put it this way. It's not slow, but it lingers. I think it lingers in places. We have shots and we just kind of linger on before our characters even walk in the frame. It's like, okay, just kind of waiting to... I don't know. I think it's done wall to wall so much, it's like kind of adds up after a while. That's the thing. It's like we kind of linger in a lot of shots in the movie.
I just think this is Shyamalan style, and he tended to do this kind of thing a lot in his early filmmaking. And I don't know. I respect him for it. I feel like there's an auteur theory going on here with some of that stuff.
I think he just makes so many other great choices, and that's like the one choice. Like I don't know, it's just he just kind of chose to be a little slow, and it's not when we have good. That's the thing. It's not even when we have like stuff really worth kind of lingering on. It's just like okay, exterior, and the characters enter. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, so let's talk about all the pros here, man. First and foremost, we got to talk about the color theory, man. We got to talk about the colors.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the green versus purple color scheme is obviously very prominent. You've got some strong blues in there as well with the water. Let
I
me
think the
see.
greatest example of color theory in the movie is the comic cover from the start, which I know we'll talk about momentarily. But think about this: it's a great force. There's so many great elements of foreshadow in this movie. Of course, the water thing with the rain and everything. Of course, in itself, water is definitely terrifying and definitely thematic. But the foreshadow on the cover of that comic, Tiki. I don't know all the fake characters' names, but um, we have these two hero and a villain fighting. The hero, of course, is in the David Dunn colors. He's in the green and a little bit of yellow here and there, mainly green. He's going up against an orange guy, a guy wearing like orange and yellow. Again, orange for the janitor later on. And they're on a purple spotlight. Something again, basically kind of implying Glass's manipulation for the whole city. It's kind of a hint at the twist that's coming after this.
Right.
I don't know. I thought that was all. They're on this purple surface. So I don't know. I felt like I kind of read into it that way. Point is, there's a lot of great color theories all throughout the place. And of course, the rug and the physical therapy place. It's Glass's colors along with David's. It's like a hexagonal pattern of sorts. Like there's so much color theory we could talk about. We're not going to.
I just think from a pacing point of view, the film is flawless, Dragon. I mean, yeah, you might have some lingering shots here and there, sure.
Not the worst thing. Yeah, I'm just saying it lingers. That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, I just think the way, just the pace at which the information is doled out over this movie is nothing short of a masterclass. It's really just like I mean, it pulls a magic trick on you, Dragon. Even if you go into this movie fully knowing that it's a superhero movie, it takes you so long to get to the superhero stuff that you almost forget it's a superhero movie. But then by the time you're in the thick of the superhero stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this is a superhero movie. Like it's not just some B-grade superhero movie. It's like the superhero movie. And I feel like that build up, that kind of like cathartic, like guttural sort of like watching this guy go through this sort of miserable existence and then come out on the other side with meaning. I mean, there's something very spiritual there, Dragon. I feel like this is probably Shyamalan's most subtle movie about spiritualism, and his next movie was going to be Signs, which is a movie that I love, but kind of is a little bit more overt messages, and it just hits that with those Shyamalan is the redemption and the looking for something more in your full potential and everything, and just not to mention just the fact that every scene that we have, is a new question, or it brings some suspenseful new element into the mix, or it introduces a new piece of information or a new character, and it's just this great puzzle of a movie, Dragon, that just really unfolds in such a masterful way.
Of course, I think just the grand sweeping one of it all is this movie is ridiculously well directed.
Oh yeah, no doubt at all.
Again, we have like other thematic. Just an example, we have thematic touches again of like rain and water, but specifically we have the glass and the reflections. Like that's the way we introduce even Glass's birth. We have his mother seen through a reflection. Of course, Glass. He and his mother in the apartment is shown through the glass of the window. Again, it's wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, James Newton Howard's score is great.
Oh God, the music! Oh my God, yes.
It's so it's so emotional, and it's so like it's kind of it's like triumphant, but it's hard to describe. It's triumphant yet somber.
Triumphant, but not the bombastic, over the top kind of triumphant. It's like triumphant on a more
It's an inner. It's
level.
It's an inner victory, essentially. It's kind of like it's like an inner victory march almost. Like a soldier's funeral type thing of like he honored us all well. It's that sort of kind of score. Let's see. So here's something. Here's a rarity. An amnesia plot that looks basically it's the best way I can put it. It's an amnesia plot that cooks all the way through with touches like sick days. Like ordinarily, it'd be like he blocks stuff out. Why did he block stuff out? But again, we have this whole thing like we explored this through really smart, logical things. Like how many sick days have I taken? A guy can't remember he's sick, but again, we have like all these tremendous explorations of what do you do with these questions, like how do you figure it out, and again, just kind of that dawning realization. Oh God, what if I am a superhero? There's a lot of there's so much great kind of cause and effect. We have realistic drama versus manufactured drama. We have again the realistic drama that comes from the home front and dealing with the fact that okay, so if you're, if you have these abilities, again, like something, it's like instead of the mundane, the fantastic, it's kind of like it's the fantastic and the ramifications of the fantastic, It's like, again, like a train crash happens, you're the sole survivor, and of course, room full of victims outside, that sort of thing. That's what I'm talking about. And
sure.
we don't have a sensationalized, tense scene in the home front, which you'll take us through here. Instead, we have again it's through a very personal, intimate perspective. Here's a big thing in the directing: the panel framework. You know about the panel framework, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, I love it so much. I love how basically almost every shot,
like way better than Ang Lee's Hulk or anything like that.
Again, I want to call this this one a little reminder since Spider-Verse. Ang Lee, even years ago, even before Spider-Verse, Ang Lee saw this movie, and you know what? He pulled out a little Ang Lee hanky. It's just like, oh, M. Night, why? I'm never going to be able to top this. And of course, he tried topping it, it just did not go well. He got the idea for it, and he's like, you know what? M. Night, you stole my idea. I'm going to do it far better than you ever could. And of course.
Oh, God.
I'm going to do the panel layout better. You worked into the natural framing. You did it practically. I'm going to do it in After Effects. It'll be awesome.
Oh, God.
You'll see. You'll see. Just walk out before the ending. I don't care about the twist. That's how cool I am. Anyway. No, but seriously, I love it. Like they have like frames of like a door frame or something. They have our characters in there, like they're I don't know, so much great framing stuff. Oh God, we could spend all day. The choice of occupations, again, the gallery owner, the security job. We're doing a lot with very simple sets. We do again. This movie's made on a very low budget, and it looks great. It's like it's almost like an Albuquerque verse thing. How great you can look with using such a limited set.
Well, that's the thing, Dragon. It's like it's one of those stories where in terms of the actual scale of what we see on screen, it's very small, but through the execution, right? Through the cinematography, the lighting, the color design, and of course, importantly, the music, we just get the sense that there's some larger than life shit going on before our eyes.
And again, thematically, what the whole story is about being spectacular underneath the surface.
All
right. I guess with that said, we should talk about some. Unless you have any more pros.
No, I mean, like I said, saying it's a perfect movie is about the most blanket statement pro you can possibly throw at it. So,
all right, let's talk about some moments.
All right, who has the first one?
You go first.
I go first. Okay. Let's see. Let me.
Well, I mean, I have a moment early on, but I also have like a moment that's very towards the end. So maybe you should go first.
Okay. All right. So I guess my first moment would be the weightlifting scene between David Dunn and his son. And this is just a great father-son bonding moment, and it's really the first moment in the movie where David Dunn begins to entertain the idea that there might be something there. Of course, we see we see the son kind of trick him. It looks like he's taking weight off of the barbell, but instead he's putting weight onto it, and David Dunn is just lifting it completely effortlessly. And then of course I love that, the payoff where Dunn's just like, all right, how much more can we push this? Like, what else can we put on? And so then we see it with the full barbells with all the weights on either side and the paint cans, like 2 paint cans a piece on either side. And Dragon, it's like, what I love about this is it's not quite inhuman, right? Like I've seen like World's Strongest Man competitions where people are literally like lifting cars and shit like that.
I once saw Hugh Jackman lift 400 pounds. I've seen it, man.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. So it's like I love how this is. I love how this is framed in such an ambiguous way at this early junction in the movie, where it's like, yeah, it's impressive, but it doesn't really convince you of anything yet. It just kind of, it still just sort of makes you wonder, like, okay, like there might be something here. Maybe the dude's just really strong, but if he's really this strong without even ever flexing his muscles in this kind of capacity and without even really realizing that he's this strong, then that's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
All right. Dragon, by far my favorite moment in the whole film is the gun sequence. Holy shit. This is exactly the type of stuff that Hitchcock is talking about when he says that, a bomb going off isn't suspenseful, but waiting for the bomb to go off, now that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. This scene stuck with me as a kid, man. It really did. I mean, this scene is it's sheer raw intensity at its absolute finest. And then what I love about this scene is how broken this family is at this very moment. You have Audrey kind of off to the sidelines, sort of shell-shocked by the whole situation, not knowing what to say. You have David, who's just so devastated by the situation that he's not in Father of the Year award material himself. He's like, he's threatening to go back to New York, and he's saying these potentially very harmful things to his kid. Like, I thought we were just starting to be friends. It's like, Jesus, David. So you're saying you and your kid weren't friends before this?
Pretty much.
And yeah, I mean, it's like I said, just the way that just how real world it is. Like the kid has them beat every step of the way. David's like, it's not loaded, and then the kid tells him exactly where he got the ammunition. And it's just like, oh God. And like the whole, like, I'll only do it once. And Dragon, that's the thing. It's like, it's one of those things where we still have never seen David Dunn shot in any of these movies. And it just kind of puts into the idea, like, how far do you push this?
We don't know if he's Luke Cage. We don't know if that's good. You don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, if I had a personal theory, I think that David Dunn can get affected by gunshot wounds. I just think there's probably a little bit of a healing factor there.
My logic was always, I'm sorry, Tiki, I interrupted you.
I don't think he's got the Luke Cage effect, is what I'm saying. I don't think that he's bulletproof. I don't think that a bullet would just bounce right off of him. I think it's more realistic that he's got kind of like the Logan, sort of like his body would like slowly heal itself, but it'd be kind of a painful, gross kind of process.
Well, my theory was based on the fact that he doesn't have a scratch on him and he survived the train wreck. My theory has always been it's basically a less glamorous version of Luke Cage, where specifically not a scratch on him. And again, if you pay specific, he's never gotten hurt or like scratched or wounded. He never like looks worse than he does. It would, my guess is that he'd feel the impact and it probably would like knock him back a spell, but he wouldn't have a mark on him.
Okay, I could see that.
That's my logic is just less glamorous. Like he wouldn't be able to he'd still feel the impact and probably knocked for a spell. But again, if you can survive like a train crash and like God knows like what shrapnel and stuff coming at him and whatever happens when the train like tips over, even if I imagine he would be able to survive. Like I think he could survive, but it wouldn't be pretty.
For sure.
But I don't think a healing factor personally. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, and finally with the janitor defeat towards the end of the movie, which is, of course, this is what we pulled the root image for this podcast from. God damn, Dre, it's everything about this moment. This moment is like, it's such a Christ-like spiritual moment without really drawing any sort of blatant Christ allegory like they do in Signs. You know, it's just the imagery and the music and the themes just kind of speak for themselves, Dragon. I mean, it's so powerful, just the way that this film kind of builds up to this rescue. And what we get is not glamorous. It's not a big action Hollywood fight scene. It's just simply a dude putting another dude into a stranglehold and knocking him against a wall a few times.
It's playing that triumphant theme.
And of course the triumphant theme. Yeah, just that Bruce Willis emerging in the rain, and holy shit. I mean, just talk about a mythical moment in movies right there, Dragon. Like I said, like that, the whole thing to me just kind of like, it just absolutely defines what we love about this movie in terms of being this sort of like, you know, this world where it seems mundane on the surface, but larger than life epic things are bubbling just below the surface.
And I just can't get over the fact it's so simple. It's such a simple effect, but again, you're so invested in it. Again, you're looking like it's kind of like he doesn't get a scratch on him, and again, the thing where he's being knocked against the wall. He's just holding on to the guy. He's not even hitting him. He's holding on to the guy, and the guy's throwing him around the room, and he's denting the wall. And importantly, again, I'm looking, especially on a rewatch, I'm looking at that scene. Like, no, he's not responding as if he's gotten hit against the wall. He's holding on to him. It's amazing. Which by the way, I want to backtrack to the gun scene real quick. I keep wondering if Shyamalan was a Superman fan, because that story, the whole gun idea, Tiki, it happened in real life to George Reeves.
Right.
You know, as they showed in Hollywoodland, the whole kid pointing the gun at him, he has to talk the kid down. So I gotta wonder if maybe he based that off of that or not. Anyway, so again, there are tons of moments, folks. I'll quickly go through my three. Okay, my three. Okay, first off, Mrs. Price giving Elijah the gift of the comic, giving the gift of the comic, basically getting Elijah to go outside so he doesn't get cooped up and sad in the house all day long. Goes outside, and it's this lovely notion. She, in this purple box, all thematic, folks, all thematic color. This purple box, it essentially will be his destiny. Will be, again, this is what sets him on the path. This innocent gift from a mother to help her son is what sets him on the path to becoming a bad guy. But it's such a beautiful little moment. This purple box that withholds his destiny, essentially, and what holds everything about his future that he's going to need. The whole limited edition of it all, surprise ending, all of it. In this box, in this moment with him, and the fact that, and take this thing, it warms my heart about her. She got him. She says there'll be all sorts of boxes, and she bought a whole bunch of comics that she's going to basically use to get him to go outside and kind of get him to embrace the world. I thought that was such a lovely idea and the perfect way to kind of they kind of put Elijah into motion within his story. I thought it was great. All right, so then we have. David saving the children. So basically, right before we have that great showdown, we have David let me rephrase that. David has saved the children. Then, of course, we have again. It's like almost like the Christopher Reeve Superman. We can't have Superman and introduce like an element like kryptonite and not use it. So we introduced water as his weakness, and hence the drowning injury. You know, the psychological trauma as well as the kind of a physical kind of weakness that he feels like kryptonite to Superman. And he falls in the pool, which in itself is it's such a phenomenal shot where he's on the pool tarp and you see the tarp in slow motion, like falling around him. It's like, oh God, he's in trouble. It's a great, huge moment for him. And of course, he's struggling. And it's not the fact that he can't just like kind of climb his way out. It's the fact that he's being trapped in the pool tarp. He can't get out. He can't see his way out. And he's completely helpless, and the kids that he saved, they save him. They give him the light. They give him little like pool knob things, a little pool stick. And he climbs, and he's saved by the children. They say that to me delights me. Like, I love heroes saving people, and the kids saved them. That's beautiful. Lastly, easily, I think my favorite moment, especially on a rewatch, favorite moment of the whole movie, the handshake right before the twist. So this handshake is oh god, I'm sorry. The handshake is so good. The handshake gave me great pause because I realized that basically Elijah and David have this moment where they again the mother said, "Oh hey, your friend's here for you," and they kind of meet in the back room, and again kind of the more comic shop office of Glass, not the main galleries in the background. It's just the two of them. And Glass has this perfect line where he says, basically he's heard about the exploits or something along the line, so he kind of knows what David's done. He says, I guess this is the part where we shake hands, but Tiki never has a line that I think it's the best delivered line in the whole thing. I do. Because you don't it is the Rorschachian element right here, Tiki. I guess this is the part where we shake hands, and he says that with a sense of purpose. My inference of this scene is that he shakes the hand, of course. David gets the vision, then he's horrified by the big reveal of what Elijah has done, killing everybody and creating him. Now, the question is Glass completing his plan by cementing their roles, and that he knows when David touches his hand, they'll know what he's done, and then they'll assume their roles. They'll have clarity. He already knows who he is. David will know who he is, and therefore they become arch enemies, like kind of the Batman Joker in his mind. Or are they just friends, having this realization in the moment, and Glass is rolling with it? What do you think?
I mean, I've always read it as Glass like somehow knows that by shaking David's hand, it's going to lead to that revelation. And the revelation is why Glass is there to begin with. It's like it's the last thing. It's the last piece of his plan that he needs to put into the place by to really end off his arc.
But yeah, I just love that moment. Again, I'm rewatching. Again, of course, the twist is coming. I completely forgot about how big just that little moment, that handshake. Like, oh my god, it's Glass. It's Glass putting together the final piece of himself. Oh man, I love it. So that's my favorite moment on a rewatch. I love that moment so much. It's great.
All right.
Okay, so
Dragon has asked the question. How did it shape Shyamalan? What did this mean for Shyamalan's career?
Well, this movie, it's Shyamalan making a name for himself and his style. That's what I really kind of take away from Shyamalan at this point in his career. Like, this is after Sixth Sense, and this is like the first time he's making kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, in the sense of like kind of like making what he did previously a style. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was the Sixth Sense the first thing that he did with the M. Night Shyamalan movies verbatim, or was it that, or was it something before Sixth Sense?
He directed a weird family comedy before the Sixth Sense, but that was like not his own script, and it's just really not an M. Night Shyamalan movie per se.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, like a non-studio movie.
Kind of cutting his teeth.
Yeah, it was like the first. So the Sixth Sense was like the first Shyamalan movie.
Sixth Sense was the first Shyamalan movie. Yeah, it's very much kind of like a, David Fincher's first movie is technically Alien 3, but we like to look at it like that.
But you get what I'm saying, though, right? This is the first time he's kind of made himself a brand name. This is the first time like Shyamalan is now like on everybody's. Is kind of like start. It's like the beginning. Again, oddly enough, the parallel with the movie. This is the beginning of Shyamalan as an identity, as a kind of a symbol for what he's become. Him accepting kind of the role of director and kind of this paragon of a style of filmmaking. This movie was such an unsung effort the movie's kind of an unsung effort to legitimize comic book films in a way. It's kind of in the grander scheme of what it is. Like you can do a comic book film without even having them be in costume, but not because you can't do it, because you choose to do it. You can say something with that. That's kind of what this movie is to me, and I think that's what kind of Shyamalan did for the medium in the grander sense of things. He kind of showed, like, folks, even if we're limited, we can do the most we can with it without like being like doing costumes that are like near misses. We don't have to do that. We can say something bigger, and we don't have to force a big, what the third act does so often. We don't have to do the the third act going south in a superhero movie. We have I feel basically this piques Shyamalan's interest in the grander scheme of him like having a grounded, in basically the grounded supernatural. It's something he always talks about this franchise. grounding the supernatural and the superhuman abilities. And I feel that's where he gets the idea for all of that from this movie. Like, you don't really, I guess the Sixth Sense kind of approaches it from more kind of personal place, and then you have it here from like kind of a story construct. I think he's going to run with that going forward in his career and with the other films and such. This movie gives him carte blanche to get more ambitious and in some cases reckless with his movies. Like, this builds him the career that he kind of plays with like a yo-yo sometimes. He finds himself as a filmmaker. He's establishing a brand, and it's a film that's all substance and no gimmick. If that makes any sense. If I had like a final way to sum it all up for me, it'd be this film. It's all substance, no gimmick. Yeah.
All right, Dragon, I can give you a slightly different perspective because I feel like I was following kind of the cultural zeitgeist of this movie a little bit more closely as it was sort of happening and hitting pop culture. And Dragon, like I said, this was a polarizing movie at the time. It really was. I mean, people had no idea what to expect out of this movie. And simply, I feel like because it wasn't a horror movie per se at all, I feel like that kind of turned off a whole slew of people from it. Like, people were basically expecting Shyamalan to be the next Wes Craven, and there are basically all these expectations thrown out around Shyamalan. All these different, the next Spielberg, the next Wes Craven, the next. I think the next Hitchcock is kind of the more accurate terminology here. Point being, I feel like Unbreakable, as a critical success, but is sort of this financial and fan failure for a long time until Unbreakable eventually did get a fan following, which was years later, by the way, Dragon. It's one of those movies where it took a while for the fan following for Unbreakable to take off. I feel like when you track Shyamalan's next two movies, they're definitely as ambitious from a from a filmmaking perspective, but I feel like they're a little less ambitious from a storytelling perspective and from a thematic perspective. So like you get into Signs. Signs is like a surefire hit for Shyamalan, right? Like Signs was the movie for Shyamalan that was a hard one for him to mess up. It's like M. Night Shyamalan, Aliens, new master of suspense, doing a really suspenseful alien movie. What could possibly go wrong there? And then, of course, The Village was a little bit more of kind of like that Brothers Grimm style, like, the dark creatures waiting on the edge of the forest type of movie. Again, kind of felt like a surefire hit, more so than Unbreakable. And frankly, Dragon, I feel like it really sort of took Shyamalan his whole wild odyssey of going through and, basically going from like the next, kind of having his transformation from the next Spielberg to the next Ed Wood in a way, and kind of going at the bottom of the barrel. And now I feel like Shyamalan's gone full circle where he's embracing the just that high concept nature that really made Unbreakable what it is. And, as mixed as I am on Glass, Dragon, we'll talk about Glass soon enough. I at least respect Glass for being a balls to the walls. Like, Shyamalan made that movie through and through. It's completely his vision. And am I satisfied with most of the things in Glass? No, but I respect the fact that Shyamalan was so bold, and you can kind of tell that he had his fingerprints all over it. And so I don't know, man. I really feel like the ripple effect of Unbreakable was like in the moment because it was such a polarizing and different movie, and it certainly wasn't what audiences were expecting from the follow-up to The Sixth Sense. Shyamalan really did try and go in that horror route, at least for his next two movies with Signs and The Village. But then after that, he just kind of went on this weird tour of doing whatever the hell he wanted that kind of circled back around to now he's still doing whatever the hell he wants, but he's doing whatever the hell he wants through the air of like, through the lens of Unbreakable, now, ironically enough, sort of eclipsing The Sixth Sense in most, if not all, people's rankings of his movies, where it's like, whereas back in the day, Unbreakable's biggest weakness was simply being in the shadow of The Sixth Sense. And now I feel like the roles have been kind of reversed, and The Sixth Sense is almost kind of living in the shadow of Unbreakable's legacy. And it really, because of that, I feel like because of the cult following that Unbreakable has kind of embraced over the years, I feel like that's one of the main things that led to Split. It was one of the main things that led to Glass. And I feel like it was something that gave Shyamalan a lot of confidence in his early artistic vision. And hopefully we're going to see more and more of that early artistic vision on screen going forward. I might not like Glass as a movie, but I'm still damn excited to see what the man does next, Dragon. I really am. I think he's a filmmaker for the ages, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Another thing that makes him like Hitchcock?
What?
Here's in his own movies.
Yep, very much so.
Remember, folks, now we're gonna have a little marker here. Shyamalan in Unbreakable, drug dealer at the stadium. There's an arc, folks. There is an arc.
You know what else makes him like Hitchcock is that he'll most likely never win a Best Director Oscar.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
All right. Well, folks, that's it for our coverage of Unbreakable. And stay tuned because we are going to be diving into Split, which is Shyamalan's big comeback movie. We're going to see how well that holds up under scrutiny and in the shadow of Glass. And then in just a couple days, Dragon, we will be unleashing our fury upon the Glass spoiler cast, which I have some things to say about it, man. I mean, I'm just like, my viewpoints and my my hot takes on that movie are just fluctuating hour to hour on it. It's really I don't know.
He's fluctuating like he was Kevin Wendell Crumb, folks. He's going back and forth all the time. He's gotta get the light we gotta get the right kind of light setting on him for that one. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so yeah, I'm switching back and forth between the film critic and the honestly likes the movie Dragon, but then I also get the broy. Is Barry the bro personality?
No. Barry's not the bro. I don't know who it's not Luke. It's not Barry. I forget who the broy guy is.
Okay, well, regardless, I get the broy guy, and the broy guy is just like, this isn't what I wanted, bro.
Oh, God. Again, David, they called me Mr. Glass.
All right, have a good night, folks.